Hello, my name is Lin Nguyen, and this video will be going over how to do paint weights. So to start off with, I'll be just showing you how to rig this little pipe here and have it bend. Notice I have little loops here. These are called, and these are just extra loops for the joints, so whenever I deform it, I have enough wires here to hold its shape. So, right now, the joints don't do anything. To bind your object to the joint, I'm going to select the joint, shift select the object I'm going to control, go to skin, bind, skin, smooth, bind, options. I'm going to reset my settings. And here we are, these are the basic settings. I'll be going over how to paint weights using the classic linear system that was found in the previous versions of Maya. In other videos I will be going over the dual quaternion and the weight blended methods. But for now I'll be keeping with the classic linear. If you're used to painting weights in the previous versions of Maya, you'll notice that if you use these default settings, it will not work the way you want it to. You want to change your normalized weights into interactive. This will give you the ability to paint weights like you have in the previous versions of Maya. Max influences, how many joints can influence a vertex at max. I only have 1, 2, 3 joints at this case. I'll reduce this now to 3. Some people use 3, some people use 4, depends on what you want. 5 is default. Again, that's entirely up to you. Colorized skeleton, etc., just like the previous versions of Maya. I'll click bind skin, and now it's attached. If I click on the skeleton and rotate it, and you can see that it doesn't form exactly how I want it to. It forms a bit weird, a lot of pinching in the middle. This is typical for a default bind. Basically, it's a smooth gradation. I'll be going over several methods to paint weights. So, the first one I'll be using is probably the most straightforward method. A lot less artistic, but it does its job. We're going to Window, General Editors, Component Editor. This editor here will show our entire weight table. Be going over Smooth Skins, Options, Uncheck Hide 0 columns. That way I can see all of my joints and all the values they have. I have this on the side here. So what I like to do first is I go to my vertex mode, select the entire thing. I like to do a one value straight up on one single joint first. I like doing it to the root joint and slowly adding it to the rest. That way it's a little bit easier to control. So with this, I can click on the shoulder joint, click on that, hold shift, click on the bottom, type in the value of 1, and now every single vertex in here will be 100% controlled by the shoulder joint, meaning if I go inside and select any of these joints and rotate, it should not affect anything. And this joint is the only one that affects the mesh. I do this so I can make sure that I start off clean and I know every single value for every single vertex on the mesh. The next thing I do is I start going in and tagging vertices. I'll go to top view this time. I'll make this whole half right here be completely controlled by the elbow joint. I can click on the elbow, go all the way to the bottom, shift click that, type 1. Now all these vertices that I've just selected are completely controlled by the elbow. You can see a very, very harsh connection. What's nice is I can go in now and tag any certain vertices like this middle section. Right now it's all 1 to the shoulder joint, but what if I want it to be 0.5 because it's between the two joints? I can select all the elbow one right there, type 0.5, and now they're exactly controlled 0.5 value between the two. Pretty neat trick. I find this to be a very simple way to weight lower polygon characters and a great way to start, because if you want to go and paint weights afterwards, you can always go in and tweak. So you can go through here now, and instead of putting have solid 1 here, I might have a slight weight sharing between the two. I'll go to shoulder joint here and type a value of, let's say, 0.8, and vice versa. If I select this, I can go to the elbow and say 0.8. Actually, probably not 0.8, I put it 0.2, giving the shoulder joint back 0.8. Let's do the same thing over here, 0.2. That way the shoulder controls 0.2 of this. When I bend this, it's a nicer, softer bend. If you find that that's too much, you can always go back and change these values. At this point, you can just go in this mode and just select specific vertices and change their value to whatever you want it to be. This is probably the most precise way to do weighting. So maybe you think that the elbow using 0.2 is too strong, you might change it to 0.1 and have a stronger pinch right there. And same with these vertices right there. And select those, and I can say I want the shoulder to have 0.1 value. You can give yourself a little nicer crease. Back here, if I want this to go back further, I'd give more to the shoulder joint. So I've made this a 0.6, it starts pulling it back. 0.7, etc. 0.5, it brings it back to there. So this gives you the ability to control or weight your objects pretty fast, pretty simple, and it gives you great results. I think it works better for lower poly. Once you go higher poly, it's not going to be as easy to get this effect. We can also do all of these up here. Say this is a 1 for the wrist. And say once it gets to this point, the wrist controls it at 0.5. And once it gets to this point, the wrist controls it at 0.1. That way I can take my little wrist joint here and rotate it. We get a little twist inside. It gives you an idea of how some of this can work. It's pretty neat. And this is the component editor method of painting weights. You don't do any actual painting, you just select everything and assign values to it. I do find this method to be a great way to start weighting anything, but again, like I said, it's a bit harder to do when you're higher polygon because there's so many you to select. Alright, let's go over the other method. So I'm going to, again, move this joint back to where it used to be. And let's twist this back to where it was before. Make that back to 0. If I select the mesh, go to Paint Weights tool. I can also do the whole thing, so I can flood the whole thing in the beginning. So beforehand, remember, in the other method, I had taken the everything and put it all to the shoulder joint. I'm doing the same thing with an add value of 1, shoulder joint selected, flood. Now everything's being controlled purely by the shoulder joint again, and not by the elbow. I can do the same exact method. I can fill all of these with what I want. And so, again, I can go to elbow, and with my add selected, I can change my brush size holding B and the left mouse button, and just paint across all of these. All at one, same exact method. This time at add, using a value of 0.5, I can go and just paint the center. Alright, we have 0.5. If you hold shift, you can smooth between the two. And you see the results are going to be very similar, very strong between the two. With this method, it's not as accurate, so I can go inside right here, take my value down, select my shoulder joint and slowly paint it back. I'm holding shift to even everything out. Do the same thing with all these corners so the pinch happens nicer. To the elbow side now, I can just hold shift to slowly add some of that weighting back. You get similar results to the other method. I can select these right here, back to elbow, full 1 value. Just paint them back, make sure they're completely controlled by one joint. Again, I can go on the wrist. I'm going to twist this a bit so I can see slight deformation. Wrist value of 1, just paint that all across. And hold shift and just brush across all of these. Again, it's not as accurate. But if you prefer doing this method, you can. You can always go back and alter your values, but this is the painting weight method. Just painting everything by hand. It's trying to view everything, make sure they're all nice the way you want it to be. For this case, I'm going to take the elbow, bring my value very low again, and just brush across some of these again, and just soften it to make it all nice. And there you see we can get the same type of results both sides. So expanding upon this, I'll be weighting a head next. So I'm going to go open scene and open the head file. And I'm just going to basically paint weights for a mouth to open. So typical problem we have is a character modeler could have given you a head with the mouth closed like so. This happens all the time. I typically prefer it when a character modeler gives me a character with the mouth opened, but I like giving us a worst case scenario, something bad could happen and the mouth could be closed. So I'm going on my side view right now. First things first, I'm going to add my mesh to a layer. I'm going to lock it. Transparency, joint transparency mode, that way I can put my skeleton inside. Set my tool, I'm going to use none this time. And I'm going to create my neck joint. To the head, give myself a jaw and chin. Rename all your joints. As you've seen earlier when you're painting weights, if you don't have your joints renamed, then you would just see a list of joint 1, joint 2, joint 3, joint 4, and when you have a full skeleton it gets very confusing. So I'll call this neck joint, head joint. You can name these whatever you want them to be. Jaw joint, I recommend just naming something that makes sense. Chin joint. These are just very basic. Now with that done, I'm going to delete all my type history and unlock my mesh, turn off transparency, just click on my joint, shift click my mesh, go to skin, bind, skin, smooth, bind options again. Let's check all these things. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 joints. Make that 4 this time. Basically you want to give a decent radius between each other. I would never go anything probably higher than 5. There's probably no point. But here we go. If I take this jaw and rotate it down, you notice the whole face melts. It's kind of bad. Etc. Take the head, rotate it up. Looks kind of bad. My recommendation for painting weights for this one is instead of flooding from the root, because this case it's actually a bust, so the majority of the weights will probably be to the head. So I'll click on I'll basically flood it to the head joint first. In this method I'll be using the paint weights method to weight this face. So again, paint weights tool, double click on it. I'll select my head joint, add with a value of 1, flood. So now the head completely controls everything. Nothing else controls it. So rotate the head up slightly first, just a little bit. That way I can see my deformation happen. Being this face is actually symmetrical, both sides are exactly the same, I can concentrate on painting weights on only one half, while the other half I can just mirror it. So back to my paint weights tool, I'm going back to my neck joint. With add at 1, the reason I don't like using replace is because replace, sometimes Maya doesn't know where to place the other weighting value to. So for example, if I replace this value to for this head, for example, to 0.5, it might not realize where does the other 0.5 go. It might disperse it randomly among all the other joints. I prefer having complete control over everything, so I like using add instead. So with add with a value of 1, I'm going to paint the bottom of the neckline right here, so all of this goes straight down, because this should be completely controlled by the neck at the bottom. Just like so. Remember, you don't have to worry too much for the other side. If it still looks weird, you can always mirror your weights. For this one, I'll be concentrating on her left side, so this side right here, her left side. I just want all the bottom ones to have something. Alright. I'm going to take my value down now, significantly lower, increase my brush size, and just brush it across. Like so, holding shift to smooth in between. You can never really tell how good it looks until we start deforming the head in different locations. And let's say you mess up and you paint up here, for example. Just go back to your head joint with the full value of 1 and paint it right back to where it was before. Another great way is using this color ramp right here. It'll show if you have any weird colors anywhere else. So now I'm going to check the deformation. I'm going to turn the head, turn on wireframe. Typically when the head is turned this way, the sternocleidomastoid mass, though it should be straight. In this case it's not, it's all kind of curvy and funky looking. So I'm going to go inside and I'm going to straighten this neck out. I'll be going to my head joint and just smoothing some of this out. Neck joint, smoothing some of this. Probably pulling some of this back. The value is way too strong. Holding shift to smooth it out, and we're getting a straighter sternocleidomastoid right now. Again, I'm going to pull these back to where they were before. Let's turn the head even more. Should be completely turned to the side at that. You get a straight line, and that's my goal right now. Getting that beautiful straight line. Now pull the rest to conform to that. Now we have that straight line we want. Now turn the head to different directions, etc. See how it looks like in the back when she looks up. This is definitely not working the way I want it to. Change my weighting value for all of these. Add a bit more. Get that pinch behind the head. Vice versa. I'm going to take this value down a little bit because it's too strong. This is like a hump behind her back. You always want to do extremes. I'll be mirroring my weighting soon so I can start really tweaking all those values perfectly. So I'm going to mirror my weights now. Make sure your character's back to its default pose. Skin, edit smooth, skin, mirror, skin weights options. I'll be mirroring from Y, Z, because if I look at this plane down in the left hand corner right here, you see Y, Z, we're flipping on the other side. So positive to negative. Now I can see my problems. I'm going to look up. She looks down, and etc. So again, I'm going to look at this part here, fix my weighting, because now I can really see what's going on. It's just holding shift and painting over so it's nice and soft. Again, obviously something looks off right here, so I'm going to weight that down a bit. Okay, now have her look straight down. How does that look? It's kind of odd. So again, I'll be putting more weights right here. She's using shift a lot. I'm happy with that. Take my head, skin, mirror skin weights again. Now let's get the mouth open. I'm going to take the jaw and rotate it down slightly, not too much, just enough I can see the difference. See how I just barely rotated that? Go back now with my brush, my jaw joint, add a value of 1, and I'm going to paint, and what you want to do is paint your stroke upwards. This will slowly grab the bottom lip and usually avoids the top. Just very carefully stroke up. There's a good chance you might paint on the back, so I'm going to turn on color ramp. And you see right there, I've accidentally painted other parts of the face already. But that's okay, I can go back and fix those. What's important is getting that middle section of the mouth working just right. Back to head and neck. I'll be using a very low value and just painting over my little problem area. If I go back to jaw, it's right there. So head. Let's paint that back in a bit too. You want to make sure it goes completely away. Just make this a value of 1. Paint over that. For example, if I go back to jaw, it's completely gone. You can mirror those weights. Once you do something like that, make sure you fix the neck area later, which I will do once I get the jaw working. So the jaw looks kind of funny right now. I'm just going to hold shift now and just smooth the rest. Lower my value now and just paint. Up again. Slowly get that mouth open, just holding shift between each of them. And now we're getting the mouth to be opened. Make sure you get the bottom of the jaw. Okay, it looks weird on the other side. Let's close the mouth for now. Mirror skin weights. And we open the mouth again. Okay, now we can start really tweaking these values because before it was a bit hard. Seeing the other side kind of weird. Again, just use a low value for jaw. And just paint all of these and I'll start pulling it down. And use smooth in between. Slowly pull the mouth down more. Change the color because I find it hard to see sometimes. If the mouth is going down too low, make sure you slick the head and just start pulling the mouth back up again. Go back to 0, mirror your skin weights. Now the jaw works pretty good. Now let's check the neck again because we had changed our weights. Look up. Remember those are pulled up kind of strange now. Go back to my neck. The low value, brush. Shift and paint that back. Next thing is open the jaw. Because we do have an extra joint that's going into play, and we have some weird stuff going here. I'm just gonna use my brush with the neck right there, affect it. Same thing with here. I'm just going through with head, jaw, very low value. Just gonna paint across here. The way the jaw can start controlling these ears a bit too. A lot better result right there. 0. Head down, jaw open. How's it looking? Seems okay. Turned, jaw open. You want to check on all the angles basically. Okay. with that, I think this works. Make sure there's no other joints in there. Just rotate it and just go mirror skin weights, and you're done. And now you have a mouth that opens and closes, head that can look around however you want. Pretty cool. Alright, so that's how I would go about weighting the head. Another problem air people have is the legs. No, more like the pelvic region more so than the leg itself. So I'm opening the leg file right now. Here it is. I'll be setting a joint structure inside real quick. So I'm going to side view. Again, I'm going to have this onto another layer. Just lock it. Joint tool. I guess that'll be fine. IK. I'm using IK RP solver for this. Rename my joints. Thigh joint. Knee joint. Ankle joint. I'll call this my ankle IK. Select both of these. I'm going to group it. Go to my front view. Just move this to the side. I'm keeping this very simple. I'll also make my joints larger too. Edit, duplicate special, reset everything, duplicate input graph, apply, put a negative value right here. I'm going to click on my joint, press up, modify prefix hierarchy names, L underscore for left, R underscore, okay. Let's get my hip joint inside. I'll call that my hip. Select both of these. Shift click, press P, hip, joint. With IK's right here, I can put a little controller, so I'll make a controller real quick. Duplicate that on that side. Freeze both my transforms. Freeze. Left ankle con. Right ankle con. I'm going to parent my IKs to these. That way I have little controllers that can move up and down. Do all my type history. And if I take this and move it up and down, the ankle stay in place. Alright. Unlock your mesh like we did before. Don't need the transparency anymore. I can shift click my mesh, skin, bind skin. I use the same settings, apply. So the reason why this is so hard is because of all the mesh around this area where the hips are. So if I take any of these, move up and down, we can see it's changing part of the top part, and if I move this to the side, sometimes you're unlucky and part of the weighting and this thigh is moved over. This time we're actually lucky, we don't have any of that problem. Some people who model their characters more inwards like this, you'll run into those problems. So I recommend giving yourself a decent amount of distance between the legs in order for weighting. So the other problems we run into, let's move it to the back. Not too bad. Knees look odd. Upwards looks a bit weird and it's really killing the top. So again, we're going to concentrate on one half and mirror it. So I'm going to get that knee fixed real quick. This looks very odd. I can go inside and just paint my weights. So animation, weight tool, left knee is looking very odd. Using my low values again, I'm just going to paint this area, start pulling it back up. Make sure everything down here is fine. I'm going to go with a full 1 down here. Full 1 value all across. Okay. Now again with my lower value. Hold shift to start adding some of these things and balancing things out. I want a nice crease back here. Again, I'm going to do the thigh up here. Hold shift to soften that. Add more right here. My thigh seems to be affected heavily by the leg, so I'm going inside really just putting 1 value all across. Make that really strong. Soften that. Take my value all the way down again. And slowly play with the weights, pulling the knee up a bit. Shift to smooth out some of this back here. Get a nice little pinch inside. Knee. And the same right here. So pushes the fat back up and the muscles. And pull in some of this knee right here forward. I'm just hitting smooth in between. There we go, wherever little knee with a nice pinch in between. So I'm going to put that back to place. Mirror my skin weights. Mirror. Double check. Cool. Now let's solve a little problem. Let's move this up. This is collapsing, which I'm expected. Go inside, select my mesh. Use my hip joint this time. Full value of 1. Pull these back where they're supposed to go. Pull these back. Again, I'm just concerned about 1/2. Now with the lower value, just try pulling the butt back to where it was before. Or where it should go at least. Holding shift. Pull those back. Shift. Using my left thigh to pull some of this down too. As usual, it's always weights on both sides balancing each other. It's never just one side. Okay. I'm going to put this back. Mirror my skin weights again. There's also the mirror skin weights button right there. I already have my settings set up, so I'm not too worried. And we look how it looks like. This is how it stretches. Everyone always forgets to get the side. So right here, side looks kind of weird. Go inside. Let's fix that up a bit. Lower value. Looks okay. Right there, stretched a little too much. Pull this back slightly. lower value. Alright, back to 0. Just look how it looks like when the leg moves backwards. Got a nice crease right there where the butt and the thigh meet. I like that. Good. Up here's a bit too strong now. Just hold shift and just brush it over subtly. So I'm going to check all of those again. Okay, cool. Back to 0. Mirror skin weights. Check the other side. Okay, good. With that, we have what people consider the more problematic area weighted. It's pretty simple. Now I'm going to jump up and down. Whee! Alright. I hope that video was useful. Again, my name is Lin Nguyen. You can find more of my work at dnguyenart.blogspot.com.